Okay, Shazam. Okay, didn't happen. Actually, funny thing, I was at a comic convention where a bolt of lightning hit a tree at Dallas Convention Center, and the first thing someone goes, "Who yelled Shazam?" And I thought it was kind of funny. Now, ironically, normally when you look at the reactions for a film, Rotten Tomato scores in IMDb are normally close-ish. I say close, I mean like within 10. Shazam is actually almost 20 points different, with Rotten Tomatoes having a higher score than IMDb. So this one, of course, is about a person who was at one point in time named Captain Marvel when he was under Fawcett Comics, who for a while actually was the highest selling comic book character. And the first one to fly. Yes, he flew before Superman did. So in this one, it's a take on the modern Jeff Johns era version of it. I know very little about the character. I know some of the villains. You know, everyone knows about, you know, Black Adam's one of his more popular ones, and there's Sylvania, and as well as Mr. Mind. I know of Mr. Mind because to us it's a caterpillar. So I can tell that there's a lot of Easter eggs all over the place. Like, you know, they go to Fawcett High School, named the previous comics. Got it. There is, of course, a Black Adam Easter egg thrown in it. This one, of course, is about Billy Batson. It's also about his primary villain, too, Sylvania. I actually like how they begin with, here's the origins of Sylvania, which I thought was really interesting. Normally you don't start with, oh, well, here's the villain. Oh. Okay. But then as they grow farther into that, there's a lot of story about family. Billy Batson is an orphan. They go through his orphan story, and they go through him trying to find his family and his foster family, which is like the stereotypical, here is your cookie cutter diversity group. But foster family. So, you know, it makes sense that you have a bunch of very aesthetically different people, different ages. I will say the moment Billy Batson becomes Shazam, I loved it. The idea behind this should be the superhero version of Big. And they do an homage to it, so that was fantastic. A lot of people don't like this because, like, he's so goofy. He's a 13-year-old kid who says a magic word who then effectively becomes Superman. Think about back when you were 13, 14, 15. Now all of a sudden, you say a word and you know what? You're now like 6'4" and you're jacked like the Rock. The weird thing is that Shazam isn't it's each letter has its own specific god that's associated with. You don't see a lot of the wisdom of Solomon. But out of all the powers, that's probably the most difficult one to try to, you know, really be like, oh, well, it means this. I liked the sequence of here's him training his powers, because he doesn't know. He meets a wizard. Wizard says, hold my staff and say my name. And now all of a sudden he's a dude. He's a full-grown man. Yes, that is kind of a, I don't want to say an homage, but you saw the movie Chronicle. It's effectively the same sort of thing where it's, you know, we're going to videotape ourselves doing this stuff. The comedy is very much on point. The sad thing is, the primary villain and what he uses is not at all kid-friendly. And there's a decent amount of, I would probably say, this is like your PG-13 profanity level. But you do see someone get their head bitten off. You do see, you know, the creatures that get exposed quite frequently in the film would be terrifying for most children. And that having been said, I really do wish that when they did the commercial for it being out on Blu-ray and DVD, they ruined the ending sequence, which I loved. I talked with a buddy of mine who's a huge Shazam fan. I was like, well, how does it work? He saw it and he was like, I loved it. He goes, it's what I thought the character should be. There's enough of the family bit, that it grows and it makes sense. It doesn't feel forced. Just enough things happen. There's the right amount of comedy to it. I mean, there are moments that are just hilarious. I was watching it with my wife, and normally she would go to bed like an hour into the film, and I'm like, "Well, you want me to pause it?" She goes, "No, it's really good. Let's finish it." And then when it was done, she goes, "There were moments that were absolutely hilarious." She's like, I'm glad DC did a film that had moments of just. Like, I'm trying to do my DDPY because I work out while watching movies, and there are times I had to stop because I was busting out laughing at moments that felt like the crew was actually having fun, and the moments of comedy felt organic enough that it was great. Mark Strong as Savant, fantastic job. I was like, man, this guy is a great villain. Of course, also means I'd probably never see his Sinestro again, which again was a very strong character. Zachary Levi as doing the Shazam character, great. He had the look of like something like, I'm a kid and I've got super strength and speed and stuff, and I shoot like lightning from my fingers, and I fly. I guess I'm invulnerable. And those sequences are hilarious. When it's, well, what's my name? And the characters walking around with Freddie Freeman started throwing out a bunch of random names for him, and some of them were just fantastic. I thought this one was really good. They do a scene towards the end that I love the way that they shot it. Because Freddie Freeman talks about, like, oh, well, I know this guy. And someone's like, oh, you know so-and-so too? And they do this scene, which is great. The ending credits, where, of course, they do show another villain. They do make... they kind of poke fun at Aquaman. I did like that Freddie Freeman pretty much wore... He had, like, Superman, Batman paraphernalia, and he wore Aquaman and Wonder Woman shirts. I liked the way that felt. So, good, strong characterizations. Felt like... I don't know a lot about the character, but I did read the Jeff Johns origin story, so I kind of know that, even though that dealt with Black Adam. Who hopefully The Rock will be. Because that'll be awesome. Overall, great. This was a solid film. The weirdest thing that when you look at what Warner Brothers has kicked out, Man of Steel was good, not great. Superman vs. Batman, good, not great. Left a lot to be desired. Justice League, good, not great. Wonder Woman, killed it, knocked it out of the park. Suicide Squad, good, not great. Aquaman, really good. Shazam, really good. So these bizarre, not well-known characters, they seem to get people who either, one, really, really know the character, or they get people who go, this sounds like an awesome time, I want to do this. And it's weird because their two most popular characters, they could not seem to get the ball rolling on them, but random secondary characters, they're killing it with. At this point, I know they mentioned another Justice League film, and I think that Henry Cavill's out, Ben Affleck is out, I think Ezra Miller is out, which, not a huge loss there. So they pretty much only really have Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Shazam. At this rate, I would almost like to see them do something vastly different, do like a Justice Society film. And have it do a little bit of, here's some of the... I'd do it almost like in the Wonder Woman scenario. I would probably do the McCarthy-esque, Cold War era trials, and then use that to harken back to, well, we did this stuff in World War II. And I think that could make a really interesting film. Allow them to take a bunch of bizarre kind of side characters and develop a very rich storyline, and then actually build in a nice backstory. So if they wanted to do something different from a different time area, instead of doing things in the modern era, you could do some really interesting things. You could show these characters, and then you could do, I don't know, like Infinity Inc. You could show, well, here's the children of these superheroes. You could then describe, well, superheroes existed, but this is what happened, this is the public discourse, then they, went into hiding. However you want to try to spin it, there's a lot of great stuff that DC has access to, and by extension Warner Brothers. They do a very good job in a TV show. So when they've got, 10 hours to plan out a plot, they can do a very good job. When it comes to an hour and 40 to 2 hours, they don't seem to be able to hit it as frequently, but they seem to be able to for the less than popular characters. I don't get it.